Alright, biology, we are finally to the end of chapter 7, so this is chapter 7, section 4, the diversity of cellular life, and we're just going to look at how cells contribute to life is what we're going to do here. So, first thing, the differences among living things arise from the ways in which cells are specialized to perform certain tasks and the ways in which cells associate with one another to form multicellular organisms. So we talked about eukaryotic cells were highly specialized, and there's some, like the prokaryotic ones, they're defined by the fact that they're not that specialized, that they have almost kind of a more basic function compared to the other cells. So we're going to look at the different types of associations that cells make. So before we look at multicellular organisms, which are going to be the main focus, we're going to look at unicellular organisms. And uni just equals 1. So when you see uni in front of something, you know it just means 1. For example, a unicycle has only one wheel, and unicellular organisms, therefore, are only made up of one cell. And unicellular organisms dominate life on Earth, so there are more bacteria and unicellular organisms like the things that live in the pond water that Anton von Leeuwenhoek saw. Those are all over the Earth. They outnumber us more than we could ever imagine. There's trillions of us, just trillions of them living on each human. So they dominate life on Earth. So we have whole chapters dedicated to them, but just know for now that they dominate life on Earth. And multicellular organisms, these are organisms that are made up of many cells. So again, multi meaning many. And there's a great variety amongst multicellular organisms. Not quite as much as there is with the unicellular, but there is still quite a lot. And then we're going to talk about cell specialization. So just know we have a variety of multicellular organisms, and the reason why is because we have cell specialization. So what is cell specialization? So cells throughout an organism can develop in different ways to perform different tasks. So this is called cell specialization. Cell specialization. Man, I cannot say that. Cell specialization. And specialized animal cells, so that is us. So animal cells are specialized in many ways. For example, red blood cells, they transport oxygen. As you can see, they have a definite different shape than the rest of the other cells. And then we have cells in the pancreas that produce proteins. So again, these are both found inside of us, but they both do completely different things and look completely different. And then muscle cells allow for movement. So that kind of their way they're set up kind of allows them to move. Again, much different than these. So this is for oxygen, this is for producing proteins, and this is for movement. And then plant cells, they have specialized cells as well because they are eukaryotic. They exchange carbon dioxide, oxygen, water vapor, and other gases through tiny openings called stomata on the undersides of their leaves. And then they have highly specialized cells known as guard cells that regulate this exchange. So here's what this looks like up close. These, you can see the holes here, that's the stomata, but then up here you have one that's closed by the guard cells. And so that is just kind of a couple examples of how cells are specialized within plants and animals. And so now we're going to look at specialization of cells when they build up and when they come together to form a certain task. So we have 4 levels of organization in multicellular organisms. So within us right now, we have 4 levels of organization that involve cells. So the first one is just a cell by itself, and then when a bunch of cells come together, we have a tissue. When a bunch of tissues come together, we have an organ, and when a bunch of organs come together, we have an organ system. And here is an example here of the picture. We have, again, a muscle cell, and then the example they have is maybe this muscle cell will make up smooth muscle tissue. All this smooth muscle tissue will make up a stomach, and then the stomach is a part of the digestive system with the mouth, the esophagus, the large and small intestine. And that is, so we're going to look at each one of these more broken down. So in multicellular organisms, cells are the first level of organization. So pretty simple there. We all know that we have cells. If you don't know that by now, you have been asleep for this entire semester. So in multicellular organisms, cells are the first level. And then when we have a bunch of cells come together, we have tissues. And a tissue is a group of similar cells that perform a particular function. So this can't just be, we can't just have a red blood cell, a pancreas cell, and a muscle cell come together. That wouldn't work to form a tissue because they don't perform the same function. It would have to be all muscle cells. So a bunch of muscle cells would have to come together to form a tissue. And there we go, you can see all the muscle cells coming together and they form smooth muscle tissue. And then wrong way here. Let's see. Okay, so never mind. So most animals have 4 types of tissues. We have muscle tissue, we have epithelial tissue, we have nervous tissue, and connective tissue. That is more of an anatomy, physiology, if you ever want to take that. So we'll maybe just know the fact that we have 4 main types of tissue. I'll let you know if we need to know anything more specific about them. And so when we have a bunch of tissues that come together, we have an organ, and organs are just groups of tissues. They, again, work together to perform a specific function. So we couldn't have muscle tissue and epithelial tissue come together. It would have to be all epithelial or all muscle to form an organ. And the organ we have is a stomach, so that's an example. And then our last level of organization is organ systems, and in most cases an organ completes a series of specialized tasks, and a group of organs that work together to perform a specific function is called an organ system. So the part of the organ system that we were talking about was the stomach, and that makes up the digestive system. So if you have any questions, let me know, but other than that, that is the end of Chapter 7.